What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio and welcome to Stat Diggers for UFC Vegas 74. We have Amir Albazi going against Kai Kara-France. We are here after a week off and really looking forward to getting right back into it. As always, we are here with Uncle Weezy. Weezy, what is up? Are you looking forward to UFC Vegas 74? And what are your initial thoughts on the card?
Yeah, dude, I was looking at the lines for this card, first of all, Brady, and we're going to have to put in some work this week because we got a lot of fights that are damn near even on the lines. Grishin versus Lins, very close to even. Lacerda Blackshear, really close to even. Fry Reed, really close to even. Mays Arlovski, close to even. Zaleski dos Santos versus Nurmagomedov is close to even. And the main event is a pick'em. You know, and then we've got other favorites that are like Caceres minus 170, Gordon minus 180, Elliott minus 180. So we got to put in the work this week because it's these closely lined fights where we got to dig a little bit deeper, look into the numbers, find out where somebody's got an advantage, find out where somebody's turning around too quickly, is on too long of a layoff. We got to find these little weaknesses or strengths in certain fighters in order to make, you know, because that's when we find the value, you know, is when the line is close, but we can find things, many reasons to like one fighter over the other. The last example I could think of is just Chase Hooper, was somebody who had every statistical advantage in the fight over Fiore. He was more experienced. He had fought the better brand of competition. We had seen better grappling from him. You know, we had seen him fight the much better brand of competition. He's taller, he's younger, he's longer. You know, and it was still a closely lined fight. So hopefully, if we do our work like we do every damn week here on Stat Diggers, Brady, Pub Sports Radio in the house, I'm going to give you that early look. We're going to do the digging here to find these spots, stack cash tickets like flapjacks, make the bookies cry again. And that's the goal, man. That's what we're trying to do here.
Let's do it. And yeah, we made him cry 2 weeks ago. I know me and you had a pretty good week. Do you want to quickly recap 2 weeks ago? I forget. It was so long ago at this point. What was it? UFC Vegas 73, was it?
73. Dern versus Hill. And yeah, up 2.93 units for me. Had a max bet on the Anthony Hernandez money line, 5 units, minus 190. Picked that perfectly. That was Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. Had a 1 unit bet on the Chase Hooper money line. Got him at plus 120. Had the Latifi Nascimento over 2.5 rounds. That hit for 1 unit. Lost on the Johnson Ferreira over 2.5 rounds. Lost on a parlay where I had the under 2.5 rounds in the Garimbo versus Sato fight. That did not cash. But the greasy 4-legger hit. The Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week hit for a max bet. Even had a 3-legger prize picks play that hit for 5 units. So it was a fantastic week. A great way to go into the break, Brady. There's no better way than after a long stretch of fights on that last week to have a great week and really be able to enjoy the time off, rest without a loss being in your head, kind of, you know, sticking in there and pissing you off. So really great way to end that long stretch, and we got another long stretch ahead of us here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, very, very good night for you, Weezy. Congrats. For me, I'll quickly go over the losses. I had 1 unit on the Sato Garimbo under 2.5 rounds, minus 155. Not sure how that didn't hit. I had a quarter unit on Garimbo by submission, plus 475. I thought he was going to have more opportunities. I had a quarter unit on Demopoulos winning inside the distance for some reason at plus 350. Had a half unit on Nascimento winning inside the distance for some reason at plus 160. And then I had quarter unit sprinkles on Silva round 2 and round 3. So those are the losses, but the wins, I had the fight won't start round 3 for Mahashate Borshev. I had the fight doesn't go to decision, my biggest bet of the night for Shabazi and Hernandez, 3.5 units, minus 200. That line just seemed really off, and wish I went a little bit harder on that, but 3.5 units, pretty big bet. I had a 1.5 unit bet on the under 2.5 in the Fiallo Buckley. I had this is my favorite one. So after Orion Kosi came out with like interviews all week talking about those health issues and then showed up at the weigh-ins looking like complete crap, actually changed my pick, and I never changed my pick. I think it was like the third time ever that I've changed my pick. And I changed my pick to Gilbert Urbina, and I put a half unit on him to win inside the distance at plus 220. And then I also added the fight doesn't go to decision at minus 165. So that was big after seeing Kosi look like crap on the scales. And then I had the Natalia Silva winning by knockout, half a unit plus 260. So 3.6 units. Very, very happy with how 2 weeks ago went. And hopefully the momentum can continue here. It looks like I'm on, I think, a 5-event winning streak. So hopefully we keep it up here. Just first look, I've taped every fight besides one of the fights. Not much sticking out. Like you said, there's a ton of closely lined fights. A couple total sticking out that we'll talk about, but I don't have any bets yet, but that might change after the show. So I do want to shout out the chat. Welcome back, guys. Hopefully your week off was good. Hopefully everybody's having a very good Memorial Day weekend as well. We got Propaholic, first one in here. What is up, Propaholic? We got UFC Shell. We got Go Flamingo in the building. We got our guy Sean V. We got Brandon Babcock, Ice Viking, Rob Lawrence, Victor DeJesus. We got Jeff in here. We got Mark. We got Evan. We got Jared. We got Sigma. We have Justin in the chat as well. We got Daniel. We got Lou Betcha. We're cashing the hat prop. Yeah, I look like Irina Alexeyeva in the hair department today. So I had to cover it up with the hat. It's a Sunday, so hat cashes. There you go. Shout out to Lou Betcha. All right. Weezy, I say we get into UFC Vegas 74. What do you say?
Let's do it, man. Let's do it. It's an interesting card. We got to put in the work. Like I say, a lot of close lines. So if we find some spots, they're going to stick out pretty good if we can find them. So let's do it.
Yeah, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on a lot of these fights because I feel like there's going to be a lot of different opinions on a lot of these fights. A lot of fights that can go either way, and this is probably one of them. We got Philippe Lins going against Maxime Grishin. We got Philippe Lins, who is 37 years old, 6'2" with a 78-inch reach. Maxime Grishin, 39 years old, 6'3" with a 78-inch reach. We got Philippe Lins, 2 years younger. It's going to be Maxime Grishin with a 1-inch height advantage. Same reach there at 78 inches. So Philippe Lins is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He made his debut against Amir Albazi, lost that fight by decision. He got knocked out by Tanner Boser, and then he won a decision against Marcin Prachnio in OSP. Knocked out OSP in the first round, the first 60 seconds, actually. Maxime Grishin, he is 2-2-1 draw, I think, in his last 5 fights. He made his debut against Marcin Tybura. Lost that fight by decision, up a weight class, and then he knocked out Gazimirad Antagulov in the second round, and he lost the decision to Dustin Jacoby, and then he beat William Knight by decision. 2 fighters that aren't really that exciting. Philippe Lins came into the UFC with a little bit of a hype. He won the PFL $1 million, and he looked really good in the PFL, honestly, but he came into the UFC, looked like crap in the Arlovski fight, the Boser fight, and then he goes down a weight class against Marcin Prachnio, and he actually looks, I don't want to say he looks amazing, but he looks a lot better than he had at heavyweight. And then he goes out there against OSP and just starches him. So I think Philippe Lins is starting to finally put it together a little bit. Maxime Grishin, he's a guy that's just pretty solid, but 39 years old at this point. He can wrestle a little bit, he can grapple a little bit, but mostly wants to strike, solid striker. I feel like this fight could play out very boring, Weezy, but and it's a very close line fight. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, 2 older light heavyweights here with Lins at 37 and Grishin at 39 now. I mean, Felipe, so he's a year younger than Maxim. He's been the better finisher overall as a pro, 81.25% to 68.75% for Grishin in his career. Felipe's got good power on the feet, but so does his opponent in this case. Felipe's been the more active grappler at the UFC level. He's averaging 1.79 takedowns per 15 minutes, winning about 75% of the control time positions in his fights. And he's fought and beaten the more experienced level of UFC competition, having fought guys like Arlovski and and St. Preux. And now Grishin, he's got the overall experience advantage. He's got 22 more professional fights than Philippe Lins. He's got 225 more minutes in the pro cage, and he's been the way busier fighter, as he's averaging about 3 fights a year over his, almost 15-year career at this point. He's got 43 fights in just under 15 years. While you see Lins, he's been fighting for almost 18 years. He's only got 21 professional fights. So, Grishin's just been a lot more active. That's one of the reasons I think that he's the favorite in this fight, is that we just know a little bit more about what Grishin's going to bring every time he steps into the cage. Grishin's also got a little bit of a UFC experience advantage with about 20 more minutes in the octagon. Maxim's finished, he's flashed a bit more power at the UFC level. He's landed a knockdown on 1.27% of the distance strikes that he's landed. He's got 2 UFC knockdowns while Linz has 1. And Maxim's shown to be the better minute winner at distance striking range. As we can see, Linz is landing 4.19 distance strikes per minute and absorbing 4.16. So he lands about what he absorbs, which is fine. But Maxim is landing 4.74 and only absorbing 2.81. We do have to keep in mind that he fought William Knight, who doesn't throw strikes. So he's going to actually wind up having more significant strikes than his opponent. But in this case, he does appear to, on paper at least, be the better minute winner. But both of these guys are pretty low volume. So I guess it just depends on, whether Linz grapples here, whether Maxim grapples here, and whether Linz shows the same no level of respect that he showed for St. Preux when he walked in there and just basically said, I'm not going to fight at this guy's pace. He landed one big shot, and then he just completely emptied the tank, went after St. Preux. The perfect game plan for somebody that's as low volume and as washed as Ovin St. Preux would be to just make the dude fight, because he clearly doesn't want to. So it's going to be interesting to see, because Grishin isn't a lot different than Ovin's. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't wrestle much. He's huge for the weight class. He's got good power. But in this case, you're dealing with an orthodox fighter instead of a southpaw in St. Preux. So I don't know, man. I see this as being a close kickboxing match. It's mostly going to be spent at range. Neither guy is the most committed wrestler or grappler. Both tend to prefer to stand, and both are fairly low volume. Lin seems to throw with more power and purpose, but the distance striking numbers show Grishin to be the better minute winner at range. It's a hard fight to read, man. I think this one can kind of go either way, and I'm not seeing a lot in the numbers that leads me one way or another here, and there's not much in the narrative either in terms of which one of these guys, wants it more at this point in their career. Neither of these guys is going to be sniffing the top 10. Neither of these guys is on their way to a title shot here. It's two older light heavyweights that probably goes to decision. I don't know, man. Grishin?
I don't know. I don't know either. I guess I just feel like it's going to be a close fight, a greasy fight. I just don't think one guy has one huge edge anywhere. Like, I guess Philippe Lins could potentially try to grapple, but I don't think he has the cardio to do so. Like, his cardio looked horrible in the Prochnio fight, but just lucky for him, Prochnio's cardio looked even worse. It's a tough fight. I guess I would lean Grishin slightly as well, just because I do think he has better cardio. But I don't know. And I was maybe thinking under, but the Philippe Lins fight against Prochnio, where Prochnio was huffing and puffing like 6 minutes in, like the ref was warning Prochnio to fight back 6 minutes in, and Lins still couldn't finish him. So I don't know. I don't think I'm betting this fight. But what is Maxim Grishin -125, Philippe Lins +105. Looks like money's coming in on Philippe Lins. The over-under set at 2.5 rounds, over 2.5, -145, under 2.5, +115. I would be shocked if my money touched this fight, and I don't know. I'm not too excited for this one.
Yeah, dude, hey, we're coming off a winning week, coming off of a week off. We've got 13 straight weeks of fights, Brady. Why the hell do we have to jump into the pool neck deep on Maxim Grishin versus Philippe Lins? This fight probably doesn't even fucking happen anyways. So,
I hope not.
I mean, me too, man. It's a really close fight to call. It really is. Both, like you said, neither one of these guys seems to be significantly better anywhere. Neither one of them is significantly bigger. Neither one of them is significantly longer. The better striker, not much either way. The better grappler, not much either way. Both guys have fought solid level of competition over their entire career. They're both well tested. It's just Grishin's a lot more active, but that's about all I can find. So, yeah, man, let's skip on to the next one here. This is a little more interesting of a stylistic matchup here.
Oh, yeah, this is definitely going to be a much more exciting fight. We got Damon Blackshear going against Luan Lacerda. We got Blackshear, 28 years old, 5'10" with a 72-inch reach. Lacerda, 30 years old, 5'7" with a 71-inch reach. Blackshear, 2 years younger. Blackshear with a 3-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach advantage. Damon Blackshear made his debut against Yusuf Salau. That fight was a draw. I believe it was on short notice. He took that fight, and then he fought Farid Basharat. Lost that fight, but I think he made a very good account for himself in that loss there. As far as Luan Lacerda, he made his debut against Cody Stamann, kind of got thrown to the wolves a little bit against Cody Stamann there and lost that fight by decision. Like Blackshear, I thought even in a loss, Luan Lacerda did make a pretty good account for himself. Prior to that, 4 submission wins in a row. Solid matchup here. Another very closely lined fight, Weezy. You like this fight as well? Or like this fight better than the first one?
Yeah, like, I think both of these guys are pretty good regional scene guys that have been tested at a pretty good level and are ready for this level. They're both young. Luan's still only 30. You got Damon still not even 29 yet. And Damon's got 18 fights. He's fought at Jackson Wink, so he's been at a solid camp for a long period of time. Both of these guys are plus grapplers. I think with Luan, you got a black belt. Damon's a brown belt. And both of these guys get the majority of their wins by submission. You can look on the stats here and see that Luan Lacerda only has 2 wins by decision. All 8 other wins in his career are by submission. And with Damon Blackshear, he's got 8 wins by submission, 1 win by knockout, and 3 wins by decision. So both of these guys really do depend on their grappling in order to find moments in fights, because neither one of them is spectacular in decisions. Damon Blackshear in his career, 3 wins, 5 losses, and a draw in decisions. So he's not a great minute winner. And the same thing with Lacerda. He's 2-1. He lost a decision to Cody Stamann the last time out. And it was kind of a curious performance by Lacerda. You know the guy coming in has got 12 wins and 10 of them are by submission. And you don't see him actually commit to any grappling until the 3rd round of that fight. And when he does, he actually has some success. He takes down Cody Stamann. He gets him into a spot where he's threatening with a guillotine choke if Cody makes a mistake, which Cody didn't. He was very defensive, stood back up exactly like you're supposed to, and didn't get caught in anything. But I would have liked to have seen better fight IQ from Lacerda the last time out, because he's a Muay Thai striker, Brady. He's going to be just completely flat on his feet. He's going to plod forward. He's going to throw a lot of kicks because he doesn't care if the kick gets caught and you take him down, because he's a black belt. He's going to be able to sweep from his back. He's going to be able to threaten submissions from his back. And Blackshear is not going to be out of his depth on the ground. Blackshear's a very good grappler, very well versed, fought some really good fighters on the regional scene as well. He's got a win over Pat Sabatini on the regional scene. So he's been in there with legitimate top-notch black belt grapplers. So it's a very interesting stylistic matchup. I think that Blackshear wins this fight because I think that Blackshear is going to be the guy who's going to be the more committed wrestler, more likely guy to be able to get takedowns and win minutes on the ground. And I like that 1-inch reach advantage. I like that 3-inch height advantage. I like the fact that Blackshear switches stances on the feet. That can really give an orthodox Muay Thai striker who plods forward a lot of problems. So I'm looking at the Blackshear side here. I've been very impressed with what I've seen from both of these guys on tape. The Basharat fight, very tough matchup for Blackshear last time out. I thought he handled himself very well. And I could say the exact same for Luan Lacerda. Lacerda's striking kind of surprised me against Stamann. He did well there. He didn't win the fight, but he went in there against a guy who's been in there against the top, notch guys in the bantamweight division, and he performed well. He gave a good account of himself. But I just think Damon might have more ways to win this fight. So I'm gonna lean Blackshear in this spot.
Looks like Blackshear opened up as a favorite at -130, and he's currently +128. And Lacerda opened up +113, and he's currently -148. So the line kind of flipped there. Over under 2.5, the over 2.5 -185, the under 2.5 +155. This is one I got to look into a bit more. Any thoughts on the line? Any thoughts on the over under?
I think both of these guys are very dangerous finishers. They're both submission grapplers, but because they're both good submission grapplers, I don't know if either one's going to catch the other one. Could see some shots landing on the feet here. Both of these guys do throw with power and purpose, but I think this, God, I don't really have a strong lean either way on whether this goes to decision or not. I just think that Damon's got a couple more avenues potentially here to win this fight, but I think this is going to be a fun one, man. This could be a potential fight of the night candidate because these guys scrambling and grappling, if they get into that early and it goes that way for most of the fight, I think it's going to be a very exciting fight.
Yep, I think it's a good fight here on these prelims, but we'll move on to another fight. We got Elise Reed going against Jinyu Fry. We got Elise Reed, 30 years old, 5'3" with a 63-inch reach. Jinyu Fry, 37 years old, 5'3" with a 65-inch reach. We got Elise Reed, 7 years younger. It's going to be Jinyu Fry with a 2-inch height advantage or 2-inch reach advantage, same height there between the two. Elise Reed, she is 2-3 in her last 5 fights. She made her debut up a weight class against Ciara Eubanks, lost that fight by first round TKO. Won a decision against Corey McKenna. Lost by third round TKO against Sam Hughes, beat Melissa Martinez by decision, and then lost by submission against Loma Luke Bunmi. Jinyu Fry, she is 2-3 in her last 5 fights as well. She fought Loma Luke Bunmi, lost by decision, beat Gloria DePaula by decision, beat Ashley Yoder by decision, lost the decision against Vanessa Demopoulos, and then got knocked out by Poliana Viana. So this is one where sometimes, when these lines drop early, I like to go, look at the line, see if anything sticks out. And like 3 weeks ago, one line that did stick out was Elise Reed at like +110, +120 against Jinyu Fry. And here today, Elise Reed's like -140. So I wish I would have looked into it a little bit more. And, even if I did, I'm not sure if I would bet it, but I guess I do lean to the Elise Reed side. I've just never been a big Jinyu Fry fan. She's so low volume when it comes to the striking. She throws absolutely nothing. She's now 37 years old at strawweight. I don't think she has good cardio. I think Elise Reed's going to be more active on the feet. I think Elise Reed hits hard, has really good striking. One thing that does concern me in this matchup, though, I think Elise Reed still has a huge hole in her game, and that's the grappling. I mean, getting submitted by Loma Luke Bunmi is not a good look. I think that was Loma's first submission ever. She got out-grappled badly by Sam Hughes. Ciara Eubanks, Corey McKenna, when she did choose to grapple, she had a ton of success. So I still think that's a huge hole in Elise Reed's game. And that's not really Jinyu Fry's game, but we did see Fry against Gloria DePaula go out there, get takedowns in the first round, in the third round, and win those first and third rounds with that top control. So I guess I could see a scenario where Jinyu Fry does go that route. But if not, and this fight does take place in the striking, I just think I count on Reed a little bit more to just do more. But definitely missed the line. Like a plus money for Elise Reed, sure. But now when we're talking laying chalk on it, it's probably something I'm going to pass on. Another closely line fight, though, Weezy. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think Propaholic kind of summed it up really well when he said, no way I put my money or time on this fight. And it kind of feels like one of those. But and it's not to say that we can't make money on these kind of fights. A lot of them, you can make money on women's MMA. You can bet the underdog, and most times you're going to come out ahead. But in this particular case, there's a couple things that surprised me, Brady. Really surprised me, right? We've talked about it ad nauseum as long as we've been doing stat diggers. Every time we got a Jinyu Fry fight, we talk about how low volume she is, right? We talk about she's just pathetically low volume. Would it surprise you if I told you that actually Elise Reed by the numbers is lower volume than Jinyu Fry?
At distance or overall?
Well, overall, actually, she is. Jinyu Fry's attempting 7.08 significant strikes per minute. Elise Reed's only attempting 5.32. And then when you look at the distance numbers, it's 9.45 attempts for Fry, 9.73 for Reed. So Reed, a tiny bit more volume, but not even like 5%. So they're both pretty low volume. And that's something that's, we've got a 24.77 minute sample size of time that Elise Reed has spent at distance striking range in the UFC. So even though what I see on the feet is that Elise Reed's got a really nice straight right hand. It comes straight down the pipe. She loads up on it. It's fast. It's accurate. And she lands it a lot. She's got a lot of confidence in that weapon. But she's not throwing it enough. And this isn't Corey McKenna here with a 58-inch reach. This is, Jinyu Fry, 65-inch reach. Fry is actually going to have the reach advantage here, and it's a southpaw versus orthodox matchup. The other thing that really surprised me was how efficient Jin Yu Fry has been in the grappling exchanges, right? Because Jin's only attempted 9 takedowns, but her opponents have attempted 27. So for every one that Jin Yu Fry attempts, her opponents are attempting 3. But Jin Yu Fry's winning the control time positions 17% to 15%. She's winning at a 1.14 to 1 ratio, about 53% of the control time positions that she's in. So I kind of feel like potentially Jin Yu Fry could go to the grappling here and win minutes. But there's just not a lot of evidence that Elise Reed's going to be that much better on the feet than Jin Yu Fry. She might have some problems here with the southpaw. But it's a very close fight, man. And I mean, if you put a gun to my head and said I had to make a bet on this fight, I would just blindly say, I'm going to take the plus money side. I don't care if it's Reed. I don't care if it's Fry. Just give me the plus money side in this spot because I think it's going to be a close fight. But there's, if you're on the Reed side, I get it because Jin Yu Fry has only completed 3 takedowns in 6 fights. So if you're on that Reed side, you want to be confident you're fighting a fighter who's not going to commit to the wrestling. And there's not a lot of evidence to suggest that Fry will. And on the feet, Reed is slightly better at it with the distance metrics that we have available here. So she should be able to win the minutes on the feet. She's a little more accurate, and she's just as defensively responsible as Jin Yu Fry. So in terms of the schedule, the strength of schedule, Reed has fought the better brand of competition overall. She's probably got the better wins overall. So there are some reasons here to like Elise Reed. And I'll pick her. I'll pick the fighter that's 7 years younger here, that's got a lot more to fight for. The one that's not coming off a brutal knockout, to Polyana Viana. So, I'll pick Elise Reed here. But I don't think that my money will be getting anywhere near this fight.
Yeah, Reed opened up plus 130 at that point. Yeah, sure, I have some interest, but at minus 135, I think I'm okay on that. I'm not a big fan of either fighter, actually. I typically look to fade both these fighters, and they're fighting each other. So, minus 135 on Reed. Can't see myself getting there. The over-under, obviously the over's juiced minus 300 to the over, which is crazy. But another fight I don't really have too much interest from a betting perspective, and quite frankly, a fan perspective on this one. Just not a big fan of either of these two.
Yeah, neither am I. And I mean, I think probably the best bet on this fight is something that my prop template pointed out. It's the under 2.5 rounds at plus 170. That's a 37% implied probability, but 45% of women's strawweight fights go under 2.5 rounds. Or I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one here. It's plus 240.
Yeah.
Which is 29%, and 28% of these fights go under 2.5 rounds. But for Reed and Fry, they've had 4 of 11 fights finish under 2.5 rounds. So that's 36.36%. We're only paying 29.41% on the line. So could be an interesting way to play this. Hope for violence. We've just seen Fry get knocked out, and we've seen Elise Reed show a terrible ground game. So she could potentially get submitted. So I think plus 240, a small violence bet here might actually be worth it. But then you're counting on Jin Yu Fry or at least Reed to get a finish, so I have to throw that caveat out there.
Yeah, that's the only thing. But yeah, I don't hate that look at all. I don't know if I'll be getting into it or not, but I don't hate that at all. I actually did consider maybe like a poke on like an Elise Reed knockout if it's something crazy, but we'll see what happens. All right, we'll move on to a fight that we broke down a couple weeks ago, and it's getting rescheduled here. We got Daniel Santos going against Johnny Munoz Jr. We got Daniel Santos, 28 years old, 5'7", 68-inch reach. Johnny Munoz Jr., 30 years old, 5'9", with a 71-inch reach. Daniel Santos, 2 years younger. That's going to be Munoz with a 2-inch height advantage and a 4-inch reach advantage. Daniel Santos is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He made his debut against Julio Arce, lost that fight by decision, and then beat John Castañeda by second-round knockout. One of the more exciting fights of the year. I mean, that fight was very good, back-and-forth fight where Castañeda almost finished Santos several times in the first, and then Santos really put it on Castañeda and finished him there in the second. Johnny Munoz Jr., he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, made his debut against Nate Maness, very close decision loss. beat Jamie Simmons by submission, got knocked out by Tony Gravely in like 60 seconds, and then it beat Ludovic Shalinian by decision. So I did have a bet on this fight last time it was supposed to happen. I had a bet on the under 2.5 rounds at something crazy at like plus 120. And now the under 2.5 is like minus 170. So that kind of hurts. And last time Santos, he was, I think, like minus 140, and then the line just kept getting bet and bet and bet. And then now this time around, I think it's like minus 170, minus 180 even, or even more than that at this point. Let me take a look. So right now,
it's up on minus 200 almost.
Oh my goodness. So I don't, do you know who pulled out of the fight?
Oh no, I don't remember who pulled out. I'll look that up on Tapology while you're talking though.
But yeah, that's weird because I remember Santos was like maybe minus 170 last. Now he's minus 220 now. Yeah, I like Santos in this matchup. I hate the minus 220 though. I think that's kind of wild. I think he has a lot of defensive issues that I don't like, and I think Munoz can have some success. But yeah, I kind of see it playing out like, Munoz maybe gets a takedown here or there. I think Santos is going to work his way back up. I think on the feet, Santos is very dangerous. He uses that cardio pace and pressure to break guys, and I kind of see him breaking Munoz, but I just don't really see a way to bet this at this point. Like, I'm not laying minus 220 or anything close to minus 220 on Santos. Like, if anything, it's probably a dog shot here on Munoz at this line. And then as far as like the under at minus 175, like that's ridiculous. And like I said, I'm very upset because I got a much, much better number. So yeah, phenomenal fight. I love this fight. I think it's a very good fight, but in terms of betting on it, I just don't see a way to make money on this one at this point. I'm going to pick Santos to win this fight by late finish. And I think it is a violent fight. I think this fight does finish, but I just don't love that price tag on these violence numbers at this point. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one? And did you find out who pulled out?
So it was Santos who pulled out, and according to the word used on Tapology was Santos injury, but they're saying in the chat, but it was Santos was sick, not injured.
Huh.
So I guess we'll have to look into that a little bit deeper, but it was Santos the one who pulled out, and now even more money is coming in on Santos, which is interesting, So look, Daniel Santos's pressure is going to be the key to this fight. This guy never takes a backward step. So this fight could play out in a number of different ways because that pressure from Santos is going to force Munoz to grapple. And he was probably going to grapple anyway, right? I mean, we look at the numbers here. Johnny Munoz Jr., 24 takedown attempts in only 4 fights. 2.32 takedowns per 15 minutes, and then he's very active once he gets it to the ground, attempting submissions at 1.55 times per 15 minutes. 37% control time for, 7% control time against. So, I think that the line movement is very concerning here if you're on the Santos side, because this price has kind of forgotten that Munoz has a path here, and the path is grappling, because he's going to be forced into grappling. I mean, nobody can withstand the kind of pressure that Santos fights with. So that pressure either forces you to grapple or it forces you to have perfect footwork and lateral movement, which is actually what we saw Julio Arce do to him. I mean, that was such a fantastic performance by Julio Arce, and that is not Johnny Munoz Jr.'s game. I mean, Arce is a very, very high-level striker, and Munoz is a high-level grappler. Now, he's a good mixed martial artist. The kid's been in a gi since he was probably 2 or 3 years old. So he's got all areas of mixed martial arts, but I don't see Munoz just willing to skirt along the outside of the cage and just wait for that big shot to land, because that'd be a really dumb way to fight this fight. We've seen Santos struggle on the regional scene, the Murad Kalimov fight in particular, with guys that will wrestle and grapple him. So I think this fight finishes under 2.5 rounds, but that under 2.5 line has gotten so juiced that now I'd be more inclined to bet the over. I think that Santos's pressure breaks Johnny Munoz Jr. probably late in this fight, but the line movement has me more inclined to bet Munoz. So it's kind of weird, I think that we've looked at this fight for so long now, Brady, that a lot of us are seeing it in the same way. But because we're seeing it in the same way, it's pushed the line past to where I consider it to be fairly priced. And I think that now the value is on the Munoz Jr. side here.
Yeah, I think we're all seeing it the exact same way. Santos probably breaking Johnny Munoz Jr.
Yeah.
at some point in this fight. Mark in the chat brings up maybe some Santos late round props. Those might have my interest depending on the line, but that's probably the only way I'll look at playing it. Like I said, I think it finishes, but -1, and I imagine the fight isn't good decision is going to be something crazy like -200 something, which you don't really want to lay that. But yeah, I think it's a violent fight. I think it's a fun fight. I like Santos here to break Johnny Munoz Jr. as this fight goes on. Late round props is probably what I'm going to be looking at. But yeah, don't love this money line at this point. So we opened up -185 this go around. So, and then it's
Yeah, and that
currently
wasn't
-220.
close to where it was the first time,
Yeah,
right?
not at all. Like I remember people were getting like crazy numbers on Daniel Santos when these guys were supposed to fight last time, like -140s around there.
Yeah.
Now he's -200 after pulling out of the fight. Was it on fight day or was that on weigh-in day?
I feel like it was on weigh-in day,
Weigh-in day,
or
okay.
maybe even the day before.
Okay.
Not quite sure though, Brady.
Yeah. So that it's interesting, but I think Santos is the second biggest favorite on this card. Pretty sure.
A lot of closely lined fights, so it wouldn't surprise me if he was.
Good stuff. But yeah, I think we're on the same page here. Just don't really know if there's much to bet it there. All right, let's move on to the next. Oh, and somebody in the chat mentioned maybe Santos inside the distance. That was something else I was looking at when these guys are supposed to fight. I think it was in the +100. Like if it's plus money for Santos inside the distance, I might take a look at that as well. So we'll see. All right, Weezy, let's move on to the fight that almost made me retire content creation. We have Andre Arlovski going against Don'Tale Mayes. We got Andre Arlovski, 44 years old, 6'3" with a 77-inch reach. Don'Tale Mayes, 31 years old, 6'6" with an 81-inch reach. We got Don'Tale Mayes, 13 years younger, 3-inch height advantage, and a 4-inch reach advantage. Andre Arlovski is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Still getting it done here at 44 years old. He got a decision win against Chase Sherman, decision win against Carlos Felipe, decision win against Vandera, and a decision win against Collier, and then got submitted by Marcos Rogério de Lima. As far as Don'Tale Mayes, he is 2-1 no contest in his last 5 fights. Had a submission loss to Rodrigo Nascimento. Had a decision win against Roy Martinez, a knockout win against Josh Parisian, a decision loss against Hamdi Abdul-Wahab, where Hamdi popped for some performance-enhancing drugs, I believe. So that got turned into a no contest, and then he lost to Augustus Sakai by decision. So on one hand, I feel like I want to bet on Andre Arlovski here, just due to the fact that I don't think Mayes is that good, really at anything. Like I was watching his fight against Hamdi Abdul-Wahab, and it was just it was tough to watch, man. Like he's huge, and that's great. He's 6'6", he's big, but I don't think he's a great striker. I don't really think he's great at anything, to be honest. Whereas Andre Arlovski, I think he's probably the more skilled fighter, but he's 44 years old. I think at this point he's got to be the oldest fighter on the roster. So I'm going to pick Arlovski here, but putting any faith into a 44-year-old is not really something I want to do. It's another very closely lined fight here. It's a fight I really don't want anything to do with, but I would be tempted to, I guess, bet Andre Arlovski just because I think he's much more skilled than Don'Tale Mayes. Like, I don't know, Don'Tale Mayes, my biggest regret was that Sakai fight this year, right? I think it was early this year. My biggest regret was not just laying the hammer on Augustus Sakai. I know Sakai was like on a 4-fight skid, but Sakai made it look pretty easy. I know a lot of people were on Don'Tale Mayes against Hamdi, including me, and that was probably my biggest regret of the year, just betting on Don'Tale Mayes against Hamdi. I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of Don'Tale Mayes, so I'm going to pick Arlovski to win just by being better. But I don't know. I don't really want to bet on a 44-year-old Weezy. So what are your thoughts on this one?
I don't know if my thoughts mean much on this one, Brady. I started to watch that Abdul-Wahab fight. I fucking turned it off about 2.5 minutes in. I was like, I can't watch this shit. Dude, it looks like somebody spiked Don'Tale Mayes' water before the fight with cough syrup, and that he's out there just tripping balls, and everything is in slow motion. This guy has got to be the slowest human being I have ever seen besides Andre Arlovski. You know, I mean, like this one, you're going to feel like, so, you know, you're going to feel like somebody gave you a gummy bear that's like 1,000 milligrams of indica when you watch this fight, because everything's going to be in slow motion. You could time the overhand right on a sundial. You know, Arlovski's 44 years old, and yet Dante Almeida at only 31 will be the slower fighter in this fight. I don't know what to do with this, man. What am I supposed to do with this? You know, Arlovski is, you know, he's the better distance striker, I guess, you know, but like if Mays goes out there and grapples Arlovski, he could look minus 300 here. He really could. I mean, the last 2 times somebody's even bothered to attempt a takedown on Arlovski, the fight was over like 6 seconds afterwards, both times. You know, I don't have any faith in either one of these guys to do anything but suck in there at this point. So, I mean, what am I supposed to do here? One of the things that I'm looking at, and it could potentially even be a big bet, but then I'm like, do I want to make a big bet on this fight, you know, is the over 2.5 rounds. I'll give you some numbers here, Brady, straight from your Uncle Weezy's prop template here. So over 2.5 rounds is minus 165. That is a 62% implied probability of the line. Only 42% of heavyweight fights actually go over 2.5 rounds. But with Arlovski, we've had 22 3-round fights in his career, right? Or 22 since the year 2013, that is. 16 of them have went over 2.5 rounds. For Dante Almeida, it's 5 of 6 of his fights that have went over 2.5 rounds. Add that up, it's 21 of 28, 75% of the time at the heavyweight level. These guys are going over 2.5 rounds, and we only have to pay 62.5% on the line. So I'm looking at that minus 165 over 2.5 rounds right now on Bet Online and thinking, do I want to bet that? Because I might have to bet it big if I do, because I don't like laying juice like that, and I want to bet it big if I'm going to lay juice. So talk me into it, talk me out of it. What do you guys got for me?
I mean, maybe they're both so bad that neither guy's going to be able to finish, right?
That was like the thought, you know, and not only that, the data likes it, but, you know, I mean, who the hell is Dante Almeida finishing? You know, he got Parisian.
Yep.
He did get Parisian with a finish. And I mean, come on, Andre Arlovski, you see him going out there finishing anybody? I mean, say what you want about Mays. I mean, Sakai whooped his ass for 3 rounds and he kept going.
Mm-hmm.
And the Abdelwahab fight was a high-paced fight, actually. And, you know, even Mays had him in big trouble in the second round in that fight. So, you know, anything can happen. I just don't know if I want to have even a dime anywhere near this fight, even if I like the lines, even if I like the data, even if I like the stylistic read.
Yeah, because if you lose that a bet on this fight, it's going to haunt you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, at least for the rest of the year. I still haven't gotten over the Corey McKenna losing to the Luis Reed. I still haven't gotten over that. So, you know, I mean, if I bet an over in this fight and then you know, Mays gets a takedown and rear naked chokes Arlovski like 3 seconds later, I'm going to put my fist through the TV. So, yeah, man, I think, you know, as much as I might try to parlay that minus 165 with another spot to get it around plus 100 and then maybe put a unit on it, because stylistically, I think it's a good read. I don't think either one of these guys are finishing anybody. Data likes it, you know, but you're betting on a Mays Arlovski fight. So,
yep. I mean, a finish would surprise me, but again, it would be just the fact that you have to put money on this fight would be the thing that scares me away. Seeing a minus number but next to Dante Almeida's name is shocking. He is the favorite. He's minus 124, and Arlovski is plus 104. Yeah, I mean, it's tempting, but I really don't want to bet on this fight. But it would absolutely be the dog money on this Arlovski money line. But don't really want to do that. Can I interest you in a plus 6,600 draw?
Potentially, yes.
Maybe they're both so bad that neither guy deserves a win.
Yeah, man. There could be a yam bag shot in there. There could be a fence grab. Eye pokes. I mean, Dante Almeida at 6'6" has got some long ass fingers.
Maybe Dontal Mays looks so bad in there that the ref just takes a point from him. Like, come on, Mays, what are you doing? Taking a
They
point.
call a point for stalling, even though he's fighting at full speed.
Yeah, yes, I could see it, man. So yeah, maybe the draw is maybe sprinkle the draw on this one. We'll have to see. So.
That's something I like. If you lose a tenth of a unit,
Yeah.
right? But if you win, you're up 6.6 units, and you're MMA Twitter's GOAT for the entire week, just parading that draw ticket around Twitter while they carry you out of the stadium on everyone's shoulders. That would be beautiful.
What about a 5-unit max bet on the draw? 5 units to win 330 units. Could Inge doing that?
Up 330 units tracked since yesterday. Join the Patreon. $5 a month.
That would be something. Yeah, but it's, let's move on. Like I said, this fight almost retired me. It was so bad.
Yeah,
and there's actually another fighter on this card, Weezy, that almost retired me as well, and we'll get to that soon. But let's move on. We have a good fight. I'm looking forward to this fight. We got Abubakar Nurmagomedov going against Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. We got Nurmagomedov, 33 years old, 5'11" with a 72-inch reach. Dos Santos, 36 years old, 5'11" with a 73-inch reach. Nurmagomedov, 3 years younger, same height, and Dos Santos 1-inch reach advantage. So Nurmagomedov is 3-1-1 draw in his last 5 fights. He made his debut against David Zawada, lost that fight by first-round sub, beat Jared Gooden by decision, then beat Omar Gadziev by decision. As far as Dos Santos, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Submission win against Millender, knockout loss against the Leech, decision win against Koncheko, a decision loss against Salikov, and then a decision win against Benoit Saint Denis. And of course, I had to go back and watch that Saint Denis fight. I actually went back and watched it, I think, for the first time. And I don't know, just looking back at it now, I think it's pretty hilarious. That was probably the biggest or the worst bad beat ever in terms of an under where, it should have been stopped like 50 times in that second round. But that was wild. Went back and watched that. And yeah, Dos Santos looked really good, at least early. And then he kind of gassed himself out just due to the fact that he beat up Saint Denis so bad. Close fight here. Very close fight. I think it's another very closely about a pick 'em here as well. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one here?
Dude, I went back and I watched Zaleski dos Santos versus Saint Denis today.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember being on Pub Sports Radio live for the watch along for that, screaming, "Stop the fight" into my microphone. I was having a complete meltdown. And sometimes when you do that, you realize when you go back later on, you're like, okay, it wasn't that bad. I went back and I watched that shit today. Dude, Daniel Cormier is screaming, "Stop the fight!" from cage side at the referee. Mark Goddard, you could see him. He's cage side next to the referees with his hands over his face like this. He can't believe that Kisiev isn't stopping the fight. He's landing so many good shots on Saint Denis. Like you said, the worst bad beat ever. I think it was my second ever tracked event. I was down 4.5 units, and I remember losing that, like 1.75 units on that bet and just absolutely losing my mind. Yeah. And this is going to be a great fight because with Zaleski dos Santos, you got a guy who throws with a ton of power. It doesn't really show in the numbers. He's only landed two knockdowns in the UFC, but he throws with a ton of power, and he lands more than he absorbs. He throws more than his opponents do. He's got a solid 62% defense. The problem is that the takedown defense is only 62% for Zaleski dos Santos. So that's going to be an opportunity for Abu to go out there and maybe get a couple of takedowns here. And Abu's got good striking, Brady. He's got really nice, crisp, fundamentally sound boxing. Dude, look at that distance striking defense for Abu. 71.69%. This guy's hard to win minutes against on the feet. And in addition to that, he can go to that wrestling. As we see, he's got 3 takedowns in 3 fights. But on only 3 takedowns in 3 fights, Brady, Abu's got 42.8% control time, only allowing 3.45%. 92.5% of those control time positions, which is almost half of his UFC cage time. He's winning those. And we see Zaleski dos Santos is also very efficient, though, as he's only got 5 takedowns and he's given up 19, but yet he still wins 45% of the control time positions that he's in. So Zaleski might be easy to take down, but he's not easy to keep there and to win a ton of minutes against. But he may not have to, because like I said, Abu's 52% accurate with his boxing, shows almost 72% defense at distance. So I think that he's not going to be out of his depth at all on the feet here. These guys are basically the same size. It's just Abu's going to be a little bit younger. He's going to be probably the better wrestler, the better minute winner with the grappling. And I think it's going to be very close on the feet. In addition to that, Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos' last fight was a long time ago, man. I mean, I think he probably broke both of his hands smashing the shit out of St. Denis' face and then punching the wall after the fight because he didn't get a finish bonus. Thanks, Vyacheslav Kisiev, you prick, you. So, great fight, dude. I'm really looking forward to this. These are 2 very high-level guys, but Abu's the better wrestler, in my opinion, Brady. He's 3 years younger, and I think that his striking is really underrated. But anytime you're considering making a bet on Abubakar Nurmagomedov, your Uncle Weezy has to give you his public service announcement and say that this guy is not once but twice shit the bed as a huge favorite, getting triangled by David Zawater, and then on the regional scene against, I think it was Kush or something like that, minus 450 favorite, and he went out there and just laid an egg. So you always have to worry about Abu potentially just not showing up. He does do that. He's kind of like the Rasheed Wallace of the UFC, where he's just he'll look really good one day, and then the next day you'd be like, what the fuck happened, Rasheed? 35 minutes and you only attempted 2 shots and got 1 rebound and fouled out? What the hell was that? Well, Abu can do that to you. So it's one of those interesting fights. You can't be too confident in it because you never know which Abubakar Nurmagomedov is going to show up. But if it's the good one, he's a really good minute winner, man. Really good minute winner.
Yep, for sure. And that's a good point about the minute winning. Like, I was thinking maybe a decision only for Nurmagomedov and then like a finish only for Dos Santos potentially as well. Nurmagomedov has been finished in all of his losses, I believe, right?
He has. Yep.
And Dos Santos is dangerous. Yeah, I was thinking maybe like a finish only for Dos Santos, but it's a closely lined fight here. We have Dos Santos opening up minus 145, currently minus 119. And then Nurmagomedov opening up plus 125, currently minus 101. So yeah, about a pick 'em. Over 2.5 minus 210, and then the under 2.5 is plus 170. Like I said, I don't really see a finish on the Nurmagomedov side. If there's a finish, it's probably Dos Santos, as long as Kiseyev's not reffing this time.
And I think he's pretty much banned from the UFC at that point. That was the worst reffing performance. Dude, I mean, Benoit St. Denis is going to be eating all of his meals through a straw 5 years from now because of that fight.
Yeah, that was bad. That was very bad. Yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. Move on to the next fight. Then we have a good fight here. Jamie Mullarkey going against Guram Kutateladze. We got Mullarkey, 28 years old, 6 foot, 74-inch reach. Kutateladze, 31 years old, 5 foot 11 with a 72-inch reach. We got Mullarkey 3 years younger. Mullarkey with a 1-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage. Mullarkey is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Knocked out Kamaworthy. Knocked out Devontae Smith. Got knocked out by Jalen Turner. Split decision win against Michael Johnson and a decision win against Francisco Prado. As far as Guram Kutateladze, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Made his debut against Mateus Gamrot, won that fight by decision, and then lost a very, very close decision against Damir Ismagulov. So Kutateladze is the biggest favorite on this card, and there's not a lot of big favorites. I think there's only 1 or 2. I think there's 3 favorites that are minus 200 or greater, and Guram is one of them. He's like minus 300 at some point. And yeah, I remember taping this fight and being like, yeah, I really like Kutateladze in this match. I mean, then you look at the line, it's like minus 330. What are you really going to do? But yeah, I do like him in this matchup. Just such a skilled fighter, like being competitive against Gamrot. I thought he lost that fight, but the fact that he was even competitive in that fight, I mean, it speaks volumes about how talented this guy is. Very competitive matchup with Damir Ismagulov. And then now he's taken a pretty big step down in competition from Gamrot and Ismagulov to Jamie Mullarkey, who's solid, but he's not the level caliber of like an Ismagulov or a Gamrot. I think Mullarkey has a lot of holes in his game defensively with that striking defense. Very, very hittable, relies on his chin quite a bit. Mullarkey does have some wrestling here and there, but is he going to have success to taking down Kutateladze? I doubt it. I think this fight is primarily going to play out on the feet, and just Guram should be the much better striker here. He's super tough. So I like Guram quite a bit. It's just, minus 330, minus 350 even. Not really much you can do here. Weezy, anything sticking out to you on this one?
What always sticks out with Guram Kutateladze is the inactivity. The guy just doesn't fight. You can look right there in the experience numbers and see that, Guram's been a professional fighter for 13 years now, and he's got 15 professional fights. I always make the joke, that you're going to get a Guram Kutateladze fight when the year ends in an odd number, and we got 2023 here. 3's an odd number. So, hey, we're going to see Guram this year and then kiss him goodbye until the end of 2025. And look at the last two opponents. I mean, Ismagulov and then Gamrot. I mean, this guy's clearly a very high level fighter, a very talented mixed martial artist, well-rounded, big for the division, great conditioning, a lot of power on his strikes, great defensive grappling. Even when he gets taken down, he's immediately working for a sweep, submission, or to get back to his fight. He's never satisfied getting taken down. And when he's in there grappling against guys like Ismagulov and Gamrot, so we know that this guy's at a high level, and he's training with guys like Hamza in Sweden. So it's just the inactivity, man. You don't lay minus 350 on guys that are coming off over a year layoff, guys that only fight once every 2 years, because you never know how long it's going to take them to get started. That's the problem. Look, Guram made his debut in the UFC in late 2020 against Gamrot, right? And then we saw him again in 2022 against Ismagulov. He's had 2 fights since 2020. Mullarkey's had 6. Mullarkey's been in there against Brad Riddell in 2019. Then he loses to Fares Zayam in a very close fight. He beats Kama Worthy, knocks him out. Beats Devontae Smith, knocks him out. Has a 2-round war against Jalen Turner, gets knocked out. Michael Johnson beats him. Francisco Prado beats him. He's staying active. But, with Kutateladze, you've got a guy who's just very powerful, very dangerous on the feet. He can mix in the grappling. He can win some minutes there. And with Mullarkey, you got a guy who will mix in that grappling, but probably not successfully against Guram. And I think Guram will be the more powerful striker on the feet, definitely the better, more talented kickboxer. He'll be more talented with his legs, while Jamie's pretty nice with his hands as well. I like Guram's minute-winning ability at range, but both of these guys are kind of low volume, but it's definitely Kutateladze's who's low volume here. So, I just wonder if Kutateladze doesn't push the pace, this could wind up being a close fight, So I'm leaning Kutateladze, but there's so many more reasons to not bet on him at minus 300 than there are to actually lay that kind of juice. So I'm going to be staying away from this fight, other than the fact that I already bet the over 2.5 rounds in this fight at plus 140. It's like a 42% implied probability on that bet that it goes over 2.5. And with Mullarkey, you've got a guy who's very durable and very tough. And with Kutateladze, you've got a guy who's fairly low volume. So unless he lands a big body shot, I think that this does cruise over 2.5 rounds. You can cash a nice plus money spot there. But other than that, I think I'll be staying away. I think Guram probably wins this fight, but the juice is just, I don't think it's worth the squeeze at this point.
There you go. You beat a lot of line movement on that over. It's now plus 110.
Oh, wow. Okay. I saw it at plus 125 earlier today, so I'm surprised. They're both durable dudes,
Especially Guram.
Guram's been finished once in his career. Mullarkey has got 3 UFC losses. He's only been finished once, and it was Jalen fucking Turner. Jalen Turner is a savage finisher with a 100% finish rate.
Yep. Yep. Man, I see minus 400 even on Guram. I think there's a lot of hype on him because when you're being competitive with guys like Ismagulov and Gamrot, you're
Yeah.
going to get some hype. And he's from Georgia, and people love Georgians. But yeah, I mean, there's not any way I see making any money on this fight. Besides, yeah, like you said, maybe the over, but even then, plus 110, I'm not in love with it. So yeah, probably going to be a pass fight for me. But I do like Kutateladze to win this fight. All right, let's keep moving on. We have, yeah, this was the fight I was talking about that almost retired me as a content creator, having to tape Ketlen Souza. We got Karine Silva going against Ketlen Souza. We got Silva, who's 29 years old, 5'5" with a 67-inch reach. Got Ketlen, 27 years old, 5'3". I'm not sure on the reach there. We got Ketlen 2 years younger. It's going to be Karine Silva with a 2-inch height advantage. Karine Silva, she is 5-0 in her last 5 fights. She had a submission win against a very handsome, how do you pronounce that name?
Oh, Jan Kihi, I think.
Yeah, very handsome.
Very.
Submission win there. Probably one of the most handsome fighters on the Contender Series. And then she submitted Poliana Battaglia in the first round. Ketlen Souza, 5-0 in her last 5 fights. I don't know, Weezy. Like, Karine Silva's a pretty big favorite here, and I like Silva quite a bit, but I do have some concerns for her. So she seems to be a really good grappler, like very dangerous grappler. But I went and watched like all of her fights, and she's not really actively looking to get the fight down to mat. Like, a lot of her submission wins are because fighters are trying to take her down. Like, a lot of her submissions are off her back, and if she stays striking with Souza here. I think Silva's definitely more dangerous, but Souza's not a terrible striker. But I could see it playing out a lot closer than this line does indicate. I always like betting unders in Karine Silva fights. We cashed on the under in the Battaglia fight, and then I had a bet on the under, a very, very heavy bet on the under 2.5 in the Silva Cachoeira fight. That didn't happen. But this time around, I'm not so sure, just because Souza, she seems like a pretty durable fighter. And if Silva does not get the fight down to the mat, I'm not sure if it does go under here. So I don't know. It's a fight I don't have the best read on. And it's a fight where I don't really love the price tag here on Silva. But I think I'm still going to pick her to win. I'm still thinking maybe like a knockout. We've seen Souza knocked out before, but give me Silva for the win. But I'm not sure if I'm going to lay any money on this one. Weezy, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I watched the tape on Ketlen Souza, everything but the Christina Williams fight. And like the first couple fights, I was like, you got to be kidding me. How the hell is she in the UFC? And then I watched the Maiju Suotama fight, and she looked better there. She looked a little bit, I don't know, a little bit more complete, a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more powerful in that fight than what I saw in the 2 fights before that I had taped. But I mean, I don't think Ketlen Souza is any good. She's fought at strawweight. She's fought at bantamweight. And now she's back at flyweight here. And then Karine Silva, like you said, she's got a 100% finish rate. But, you know, she kind of tends to want her opponent to take her down. And then she'll work her submission game from her back. But she's not like this great wrestler by any stretch of the imagination. At least we haven't really seen it. And, you know, you look at the numbers for this. Karine Silva, 15 wins, all of them inside the distance, 4 losses, 3 of them inside the distance. So 18 of her 19 professional fights haven't seen the scorecards. And then for Souza, she's been finished in all 3 of her losses. And she's got a 69% finish rate as a professional. So that would be 9 out of 13 wins coming inside the distance for Ketlen Souza. So as much as the numbers like the over, Ketlen, you know, I could see this. I mean, as much as the numbers like the under, because we got 2 good finishers and 6 out of their 7 career losses have been finishes. I just don't know if I can count on either one of these girls to get a finish, you know. Souza is not great, but Silva's probably a little bit more dangerous with her ground game and her submissions than she is on the feet. And it looks like Souza can take a punch. So I don't know, man. I've got to just lean Silva because I think that she's more experienced, she's more dangerous, and she's been in the same weight class for her entire career. But God, that Giselle Moreira fight, Ketlen Souza versus Giselle Moreira, please don't watch that fight. I promise you're going to hate life for 15 full minutes of garbage. And I hope this fight doesn't wind up like that. I hope it's a lot more exciting than what that fight was. But I'm picking Silva here, but I don't think my money's going to get anywhere near it, dude.
No, there were a couple fights where I was watching Ketlen Souza, and I think I messaged you one of the days. I was like, yeah, I taped Ketlen Souza, and I called it a day today. I said that's it for me today. It was just, I don't know, it took a lot out of me. Some of her fights, I mean, they're just so boring. So
Yeah.
yeah, like I said, I would love to bet an under in a Karine Silva fight, but I don't know. I just don't have a great feeling about it, to be honest. So I might just stay away, especially when you're laying a minus money on a woman's under. It's like minus 110. So yeah, I think I'm gonna pass, and then I'm definitely passing on this Karine Silva money line minus 225. Like, I don't know.
Yikes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So
And I'm not betting Souza at plus 200 either.
No.
You know, it's like, you know, because most of the time, what you should be doing as a gambler is if you're like, oh fuck, minus 225, hell no. That should automatically lead you to say, all right, let's look at the plus money side. Let's determine if it's prudent to bet this over the long term. Are we going to make money on that? And yeah, man, Ketlen Souza could be the next in a long line of Brazilians, Brady, that come in looking like garbage on tape, and then they have one fight in the UFC, and you're like, holy shit, you know, this 27-year-old, I mean, like, Yasmin Lucindo looked like trash on tape. And then she came in against Hari Gi and had a fucking fantastic performance.
Yeah.
Natalia Silva came in as a plus 200 underdog to Jasmine Jazz Davicius. 2 fights later, she's a minus 1,000 favorite and looks minus 3,000 against Victoria Leonardo. Melissa Gatto, we hadn't seen her in 2 years, almost 3 years. She comes off that layoff and looks fantastic. There's a couple other names I know that I'm forgetting right now, too, that have done this recently. So maybe Ketlen Souza is the next one to come in, taking her Flintstone vitamins, saying her prayers, and winds up going through Karine Silva and just shaving her ass. Who knows, man? But I don't think my money's going to be anywhere near this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible because she's still very young, and if you watch her fights, like, you can see improvements, because you go back and watch a couple years ago, she looks like complete crap, and now she looks less like complete crap nowadays.
Absolutely. I mean, I definitely saw it in the Suotama fight, and I didn't watch the Christina Williams fight yet. I'm going to have to watch that one too, unfortunately. But yeah, I did see a better version of Ketlen Souza in that Suotama fight. So maybe she is improving.
Yep, for sure. All right, let's move on. We have John Castañeda going against Muin Gafurov. We got Castañeda, 31 years old, 5'6" with a 71-inch reach. Gafurov, 27 years old, 5'7" with a 68-inch reach. We got Gafurov 4 years younger, 1-inch height advantage, and a 3-inch reach disadvantage. Castañeda, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He fought Marcelo Rojo, won that fight by submission, made his UFC debut against Nathaniel Wood, lost that fight by decision, knocked out Eddie Wineland, submitted Miles Johns, and then got knocked out by Daniel Santos. As far as Gafurov, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, lost a decision against John Lineker. He got on the Contender Series. He was a big favorite against Chad and Hellinger. I want to say he was like minus 350 around there. Lost a pretty close and competitive decision there. And then after that, he went out there and got 2 finishes. I think one was in the first, one was in the second. In his next 2 fights there. So they're giving him a chance here after losing on the Contender Series. And I actually like Gafurov. He's 27 years old. He's a very good wrestler, very relentless with his wrestling, and his striking is not terrible as well. John Castañeda, pretty solid wrestler in his own right, very exciting fighter. I think it's a very, very fun fight here. One thing that stuck out to me, and I was curious to see where they would open up this line, and the opener just kind of shocked me here. So the opener in this fight, they open up John Castañeda at minus 350, believe it or not. And I was like, what's going on? And now he's minus 140. And then Gafurov opened up at plus 285, and he's currently plus 120 now. So this line has closed up massively ever since it opened. And yeah, I think it's a pretty close fight here. I think Gafurov's a very, very good fighter that I'm excited to see make his debut in the UFC. I feel like people are a little bit down on him after losing his Contender Series fight against Hellinger. But yeah, I was really impressed with what I saw from him. So yeah, I like both guys here. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I was surprised when because I remember taping Gafurov for that Contender Series fight against Hellinger. And I was surprised, that the level of competition that this kid had already fought, because he's still only 27 years old. But Lineker, like 3 years ago, and before that, he's got fights in he's got fights in ACB. He's got fights in all the top Central Asian, Russian promotions. He was in all of them and fighting really good levels of competition here. Guy's clearly been on the mats since a very young age. You hear his story when you watch the Contender Series performance. Lost his father in the Tajikistan Civil War, back like about 25 years ago almost, when he was just a little kid. He lost his father, and then it was his uncle who was training him to be a fighter. So, yeah, they're going to be dancing in the streets of Dushanbe, Tajikistan if this kid pulls off this win here on short notice against John Castañeda, and he's going to be live, Brady. The line movement tells you anything that you need to know. Gafarov's got good fucking striking, dude. You watch that Lineker fight. First of all, he's very durable. He can take a punch. I mean, if you're going the full 3 rounds and not getting finished by John Lineker, that's a feather in your cap. He's got very good wrestling, and he's relentless with it. But he can put it all together. The cardio's there, the striking's there, the wrestling's there. So he's a very good fighter, very good bantamweight. He's going to be a good addition here. And Castañeda, he's got a wrestling background in Minnesota of his own right. So he's not going to be out of his depth here in the grappling exchanges. He shows only 55% takedown defense on 9 attempts against. But if you look, he's only been controlled less than 5% of his UFC career. So even though people are taking him down, they can't hold him there. And he's got a lot of power on the feet. He had a great performance against Daniel Santos. If Santos wasn't so durable, he probably finishes 3/4 of the bantamweight weight class with those strikes that he's landing there. But Santos is a tough dude, so it's interesting to see Santos and Castañeda fighting on the same card again here. And Castañeda, boy, there's no easy fights in this bantamweight division, are there? You get a guy like Gafarov on short notice, and you're still only a -140 favorite. And it's because, we know that Muin is well-tested. He's just as experienced as Castañeda. 1 year less, 3 less professional fights, So, but he's been tested on the regional scene at the same level that Castañeda has been tested on the regional scene. Another thing, Brady, it's a John Castañeda fight, so you know what we have to watch out for. The scales, man. Castañeda has a hard time making weight. I don't know if he just likes his food a little bit too much, but man, dude, this guy, when he was in Combate, they were going to send him home on a fucking bus. They were going to send him home on a bus if he didn't make weight for his last fight because Campbell McLaren was so pissed off at him for not making weight so many times that they told him, if you lose this fight and you don't make weight, you're going home on a bus back to Minnesota. So, we got to watch Castañeda on the scales, make sure that he makes weight. And same thing for Gafarov. It's a short notice fight for him, and he's a big bantamweight. So it's going to be interesting, man, to see how these guys show up on that scale. But I'm leaning Gafarov here. The guy's the real deal. He's a legit prospect, still young, still getting better, and he's very well tested for an only 27-year-old fighter.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very intrigued with that Gafarov plus money. Could you imagine holding a Gafarov ticket at plus 285?
Oh, I'd be so stoked, dude. I'm going to bet that for more than a unit, just because that he's well tested. Like I said, I mean, the guy's fought a very high level of competition, and he's never been finished either. So this is one where I'm really interested to see where the over-under opens, Brady, because in Gafarov, you got a guy who's never been finished. Castañeda has been finished twice in his career by knockout. But you're talking about 10 combined losses, only 2 of them inside the distance for these guys. So this could potentially be, if you get a plus money number on that over 2.5, it might be a decent look.
Yeah, I think it probably will be plus money, and it's one that's probably going to be sweaty, but one that probably hits. Both guys are very tough. So that plus 285 was only there for 4 minutes, though.
I know. It couldn't have been there for long, man, because that was just bonkers. But I know it's short notice, but still, you got one of those tickets, man. Congratulations, you did your job.
But yeah, even plus 120 now, it's something that I am somewhat tempted on. I don't know if I want to wait for weigh-ins, because if you wait for weigh-ins, the line might be gone by then. But I do kind of want to see both these guys weigh in. Castañeda, scale issues, and Gafarov short notice. So weigh-ins might be something to look at this week.
Absolutely.
All right, great fight there. Really good fight there. We'll move on to the next fight. We got Tim Elliott going against Victor Altamirano. We got Elliott, 36 years old, 5'7", 66-inch reach. Altamirano, 32 years old, 5'8", with a 70-inch reach. Altamirano, 4 years younger, with a 1-inch height advantage and a 4-inch reach advantage. Elliott, 3-2 in his last 5 fights. A submission loss against Brandon Royval, decision win against Benoit Espinoza, decision loss against Nicolau, and a decision win against Tagir Ulanbekov. As far as Victor Altamirano, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, a decision win against Carlos Candelario on the Contender Series, a decision loss against Carlos Hernandez, a knockout win against Daniel Lacerda, and then a decision win against Vinicius Salvador. It's just a narrative fight, man. I think Tim Elliott should win this fight all day, honestly. It's the narrative. Obviously, the whole, his wife, Gina Mazzani, which, by the way, Gina Mazzani, I'm still upset with you about the Shanna Young performance, but that's besides the point. The whole Elliott thing with the whole divorce or whatever, how, I don't know, what's the camp been like? That's got to be, tough, obviously. And, what's the training been like? And I remember then the Brandon Royval fight, he lost that fight and he gassed out, which is weird. You never see Elliott gas out, but after the fight, he's talking about how he had like a really rough training camp. He was barely training and stuff. And I wonder if it's going to be like that this time around. Like if Tim Elliott's 100%, he had a great camp. I think he wins this fight all day. I think he takes down Altamirano. I think he mixes in. I think it looks a little bit like the Espinoza fight where he just takes him down at will for 3 rounds. And if his cardio holds up, I think he makes this look pretty easy. It's the narrative that kind of scares me away in this fight here. So I like Elliott. I think Elliott's the much better fighter. Altamirano, he's fighting guys like Carlos Candelario, Carlos Hernandez, Daniel Da Silva. And Elliott's, going out there and being competitive with Mateus Nicolau, beating Tagir Ulanbekov. This should be Tim Elliott, but it's the narrative that kind of scares me away from laying a lot of chalk here on Elliott. So, I don't know what to do with this one, but Elliott's a pretty decent sized favorite, around -185. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I kind of feel like you could have got a much better line on Elliott like a week ago. And at this point, dude, I'm not laying -180 on Tim Elliott ever. He's just not that kind of fighter. He really isn't. He's got 12 losses on his profile. The guy's 18-12. And I know that the losses are to literally the top-notch flyweight competition that there is to offer, but still, outside of that Jordan Espinoza fight, are there any Tim Elliott performances in a win? And the one against Demetrius Johnson was a pretty damn good performance. Like he went most of the fight. I think he got finished maybe in the 4th or the 5th in that fight. But he had DJ in a bad spot early there. He's landed some decent shots, but I don't know, man. Elliott's just okay. And Victor Altamirano is a good, well-rounded fighter, man. He's got solid wrestling. He's got good striking. He's tough as fuck. And he can bring a war, too. He's got that, that Mexican toughness. And he's shown that over and over and over again, taking some pretty good shots from Vinicius Salvador, who's a really hard hitter and just kept going forward. I think that this fight, if Tim Elliott is not in great condition here, he could get broken late in this fight by Altamirano. That dude pushes a pretty hectic pace here. But if we're going to look at it based on the numbers, the way that you broke it down, Brady, is pretty perfect, right? Elliott's more experienced, a lot more experienced, a lot more high-level fights. Elliott's got 46 takedowns in 15 UFC fights. He's attempted 99 of them. He's going to wrestle. His fights take place in control time positions over half the time. So, and he's very unorthodox on the feet, so it's hard to get the dude's timing. It's hard to plan for him because you're not going to be able to get guys in the gym that can replicate what Tim Elliott does in the cage. But all that being said, Tim's not really a finisher at this level. He's finished one of his 6 UFC wins. His wrestling is solid, but he's attempted 99 takedowns. His opponents have attempted half that at 49, but yet he's still only winning 54% of the control time positions that he's in. So I think Tim Elliott probably does win this fight, but Victor Altamirano is very far from being a scrub. He's a good regional scene fighter. He's got excellent conditioning, good durability, good wrestling. He's a thinking man's dude. I watched his interview that he did with Just Win Baby on Just Win Baby's channel. Good interview. The guy's a thinking man's fighter. He's smart. He knows what he's good at. And he's willing to go out there and scrap. So I think that this fight's going to play out pretty close, Brady. If this Elliott steam keeps coming in and they get him to minus 225, minus 250, yeah, I'll probably take a small dog shot on Altamirano because I think that this is going to be a very close fight. I don't think Tim Elliott is dominating anybody at this level. I mean, other than the Espinoza fight, which was a very clean, very dominant performance, I just haven't seen that shit out of Elliott.
Yeah, and Luis Smoka.
Oh, yeah, the drunken Luis Smoka. This was the Smoka that was getting blackout drunk every night. Yeah, he did have a nice performance over the drunken Luis Smoka, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll see. Don't have much interest in Elliott at minus 185. Minus 150 probably, but minus 185, I'm okay. And yeah, speaking of Just Win Baby, he posted a tweet about Elliott. His weight like a couple days ago was like 150 something.
Oh Jesus, that's not good, dude.
And he has like a week to cut this, like a lot of weight. Well, I think it was like 150 something.
Yeah, that's the thing, like I think on paper, you look at Tim Elliott's performances in the cage, you're like, yeah, he should beat Victor Altamirano, but there's a lot of shit going on behind the scenes here, man. I don't know. I don't want to lay juice on Tim Elliott at all.
Tresean Gore KOs Bo Nickel. You heard it here first. Bo Nickel minus 900 against Gore.
Minus 900. You're getting him at a fucking bargain. Dude, he's going to like minus 4,500. He's going to be in like 9 sport parlays and shit that people are going to be putting on him. But yeah, that'll be a fun one. That one's still not happening for at least a month, though, right?
It's going to be 290. I will be in attendance.
Oh, wow. Nice, dude. That's great.
And I was at Bo Nickel's last fight in attendance, and it was a very good time.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah. He barely beat Pickett.
Barely.
I was on the Pickett side. I thought Pickett just needed another 10 seconds and he would have turned that fight. But it's MMA. Anything can happen, and that was evidenced by Bo Nickel just barely beating Jamie Pickett last time out.
Yeah, barely scraped by. But Pickett's he's a tough guy, so.
Yeah, he is. He's a tough, durable guy. He is.
Absolutely. All right, Weezy, we have 3 fights left. We're going to go to a fight that doesn't make much sense, and as to why it's happening, we'll talk about why in a second. I'm sure we all know why. Jim Miller, Jared Gordon. Miller, 39 years old, 5'8", 71-inch reach. Jared Gordon, 34 years old, 5'9", 68-inch reach. Gordon, 5 years younger. Gordon, 1-inch height advantage, 3-inch reach disadvantage. Jim Miller is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Decision loss against Joe Zaleski. Knockout wins against Eric Gonzalez, Nicholas Mota, and a submission win against Donald Cerrone, and then a decision loss against Alexander Hernandez. As far as Jared Gordon, he is 2-1 no contest in his last 5 fights. A decision win against Joe Zaleski, submission loss against Dawson, decision win against Santos, decision loss against Pimblett, and then no contest against Bobby Green. So, Jared Gordon, yes, it was a no contest, but there was a clash of heads. Jared Gordon falls down to the mat, and it looks like he's still still fighting back and whatnot. And then Bobby Green lands some very vicious ground and pound and then just completely knocks him out. Brutal knockout. And he's coming back like that had to been like less than a month ago, right?
It was I think it's going to be 6 weeks by fight day.
6 weeks.
Yeah, but not nearly long enough. He was cold. He was knocked out cold.
Yeah, it was hard to watch, honestly. And yeah, I went back and watched that fight today, and I had a plus 385 ticket on Bobby Green by knockout. And Joe Martinez gets into the cage, and he's like, "And your winner, bye." And then they're like, "Stop!" And he's like, "We're gonna go discuss this." And then he's like, "Okay, no contest." So I almost cashed my plus 385. Bobby Green ticket should have been cash. No, but almost. But yeah, that was bad. And then Jim Miller is a guy that, I don't know, man, 39 years old. Like what's up with Jim Miller nowadays? It looks like he's like in the prime of his career, looking very good. At one point, it's like if Miller's going to win, it's going to be in the first round. He had like 7 or 8 first round finishes in a row. And now all of a sudden, second round finish against Eric Gonzalez, second round finish against Mota, second round finish against Donald Cerrone. The guy is still very dangerous at almost 40 years old. And I think Jared Gordon's coming back way too soon. So Jim Miller is the underdog here. And I get it in a sense that, yes, Gordon should be landing more on the feet. Gordon can go out there and maybe pull a Joe Solecki, go out there, take down a Jim Miller, grind him out like Vince Pichel, Joe Solecki did. I think that Gordon does have, plenty paths to victory, whether that's, landing more on the feet, whether that's without grappling Jim Miller. But, him coming back way too soon scares the living crap out of me. And Jim Miller can crack. Jim Miller hits very, very hard. He's dangerous wherever the fight goes, even at 40 years old. So I think I'd be inclined to bet the dog money here on Miller, just due to the fact that Jared Gordon is coming back way, way, way too soon after that knockout against Bobby Green. So Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one? Kind of a weird matchup, and I was shocked to see this is even happening.
Yeah, I'm shocked Gordon got cleared for this fight. This dude has been knocked out so many goddamn times now. I mean, we know that he's been knocked out 2/3 of his pro loss 4 times, but it's not counting the Green knockout, which was a vicious knockout. His head was bouncing off the canvas. It's just happened too many times, dude. But I see why Gordon is the favorite, right? He's 5 years younger. He's been busier lately. He's the much better distance striker in terms of what he's able to do minute winning wise, because while Jim Miller is getting outlanded by 1 distance strike per minute for every minute spent at distance, it's going to be Gordon who's landing 1.72 more distance strikes per minute while throwing less volume than his opponents. 10% more accurate on the feet is Jared Gordon. About 5% more defensively responsible at distance striking range. It's just that Jared, has been knocked out so many times. And even with you look at the wrestling, Jared Gordon gets 2 takedowns for 15 minutes. For Jim Miller, it's 1.25. They both average getting taken down about 1.5 times. But I don't think there's any question that it's going to be Jared Gordon who's going to be the better wrestler, better control time minute winner, because we see Jim Miller gets 15% control time over his last 27 UFC fights, and he allows 30%. He even though he attempts as many takedowns as his opponents do, and he's only got 5 less takedowns than his opponents do, he's getting out controlled 2-1. But Gordon, who has 50 takedown attempts and his opponents have attempted 40, is out controlling his opponents 38% to 13%. He's winning 75% of the control time positions that he's in. He's the better minute winner at range. He's younger. He's actually been a pretty hot fighter lately, like Jim Miller has, but the wins over Leonardo Santos, Paddy Pimblett, Joe Solecki are a lot better wins than the ghost of Donald Cerrone, Eric the Ghost Pepper Gonzalez, and Nick Mata. And I know that the Pimblett fight is listed as a loss. Okay, it's listed that way. Those of us with eyes know what happened there. But so I think if Jared Gordon wasn't a guy that was getting knocked out so many times in his losses, if he wasn't a guy who was coming off basically a 6-week turnaround from a vicious knockout, I think that this price would be justified. He's younger, and he's the better minute winner in the striking, and he's the better minute winner in the grappling. And Jim Miller, not really a great finisher at this point of his career. Yeah, he's knocking out Nick Mata and Eric Gonzalez, subbing Cerrone. But like if he's fighting somebody that's a little more established, I don't think he's getting these finishes. Even Hernandez, that he got close to getting a finish late in that fight. Had a couple of deep submission attempts there late. So I think it's an interesting fight, but I mean, I'm leaning Gordon, but God, Jim Miller by KO has got to be something you got to take a look at this week.
Yeah, Miller by KO. I'm thinking maybe finish only, because Miller's he can finish, whereas Gordon, I think Gordon maybe has 1 finish in the UFC.
Yeah, and it was Michel Quinones in his debut, against a guy that was a pure striker, and he took down Quinones and he just tortured him on the ground. But since then, he's never finished anybody at the UFC level.
Yeah, Miller's finished his last seven wins. Last time Miller didn't finish a win was back in like 2016. So yeah, I might look like a finish only for Miller, even like a knockout prop or like the inside the distance, just due to the fact that Gordon, I don't like his durability to begin with, and that's why I bet Bobby Green by KO that a couple weeks ago. And Bobby Green doesn't KO anybody, but Jim Miller by knockout something I might take a look at. But yeah, I mean, you could make a case for Gordon. He should be the favorite, but the quick turnaround is something to absolutely mention. And typically when you're knocked out like that, I mean, they force you to take a lot more time off, but he's right back in it.
Yeah, you know, and what was weird about it was we saw him get knocked out, and then, you know, there's the controversy with the headbutt. But then shortly thereafter, Gordon is up. You know, Gordon is up. He appears to be lucid. He appears to know what's going on. He's talking with Green about the headbutt, about what happened, about what's about to happen, whether it's going to be a no contest or a win. So I think, like, you have to go back and you watch the knockout and you say, how the fuck is how is he cleared? How is he supposed to be cleared for this fight when we just saw what we saw? And it was, you know, that was 4 weeks ago at the point that he actually took this fight. You know, he's less than 31 days removed from this KO. So it's an interesting spot. It's like, I'm not laying juice on Tim Elliott at -180. I'm not laying juice on Jared Gordon at -200 against Jim Miller, you know, coming off this knockout.
Yep, absolutely agree. All right, Weezy, we got 2 fights left. The co-main events, we got Alex Caceres going against Daniel Pineda. We got Caceres, 34 years old, 5'10", 73-inch reach. Pineda, 37 years old, 5'7", 69-inch reach. Caceres, 4 years younger. Caceres with a 3-inch height advantage and a 4-inch reach advantage. Caceres is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Submission win against Austin Springer. Decision win against Kevin Kroom. Submission win against Sungwoo Choi. Decision loss against Sadiq Yusuf. And then a knockout win against Juliana Rosa. As far as Daniel Pineda, he is has so many no contests, this guy. So he has 2-1 and 2 no contests in his last 5 fights. So he had a couple no contests in a row for popping for PEDs. He made his debut against Herbert Burns, won that fight by knockout. Got knocked out by Cub Swanson, had that no contest against Feely in a fight where he was about to get knocked out. And then he submitted Tucker Lutz, looked really good in that fight. Yeah, man, I don't know about this one here. So Daniel Pineda, this guy has 45 fights, and he has a 100% finish rate, which is extremely impressive. 28 wins coming by finish. And he honestly has a lot more wins than that, but of course, they got turned into no. Like, this guy's a finisher. This guy's an absolute finisher. Caceres, solid finishing ability in his own right. He has a couple submissions here or there. I'm thinking like an under might be in play here, like a Pineda early, Caceres late type thing. I think Caceres is a solid black belt in BJJ. Maybe he can get Pineda out of there early. In terms of, you know, laying minus, I think at like -170 on Caceres, I don't really know about that. I think I do favor him here. But Pineda looked good in his last fight against Tucker Lutz, and he was a massive dog. His striking looked good. But in some fights, like, Pineda just seems to like fall off a cliff when that second round hits, but not in the last fight. So I'm not sure what happened there, but Pineda looked really good in that second round, even got a takedown and then submitted Tucker Lutz shortly after. So if we get that version of Daniel Pineda, you know, super dangerous guy, I think he's super live here, but I don't know if I can fully trust him. 37 years old, obviously the tons of PED usage throughout his career. Is he going to gas out, you know, like he's done before in the past? We'll have to see. But I think I'm leaning under more than anything. Pineda early, Caceres late. Weezy, anything sticking out here?
Yeah, I don't know what to do with this one. Like right now, the over 1.5 sitting about -200, the under maybe +160. The way that Pineda kicks the lower leg is just terrifying, you know. And Caceres, man, he's got some neuro ass legs, man. You know, I could see this fight finishing early, one way or another, because Caceres very dangerous with his submissions, as is Pineda. And, you know, on the feet, Pineda just throws with such bad intentions. He puts 100% power into everything that he throws, that it kind of forces people, even though they don't want to grapple with him, because he's such a talented finisher on the ground. You kind of get forced to grapple with this dude. Otherwise, you know, you're going to be in the hospital with calves that have been kicked off. So, you know, I mean, like, he really brings these violent fights. And like you say, man, I mean, to have a 100% finish rate is extremely impressive, no matter where you are in your career. But when you've got 45 fucking professional fights, and 28 wins, and you finished 100% of those wins, and you've had 3 no contests where you've went out there and just completely shaved ass in 2 of them and had those called back as well. 30 finishes in this guy's career in 45 professional fights. It's an amazing feat. And like you say, I think fight doesn't go to decision is probably going to be juiced to the tits, but as it should be in the Daniel Pineda fight. We don't know what Pineda's conditioning will look like in the 3rd round. Another thing, Brady, that we have to talk about, the durability of Alex Caceres. He's been submitted a few times in his career. In the UFC, as a matter of fact, he's been submitted 3 times, but he's only been knocked out once in his career in 34 fights. And you look at the dudes that this guy has fought, he's fought a pretty good level of competition. Yair Rodriguez went 5 rounds with Yair, didn't get knocked out. So a guy like Pineda, who's so dangerous, you got to feel like, I kind of feel like maybe a good way, Brady, to bet violence in this fight would be fight ends by submission, because Pineda is such an effective submission grappler. And if he doesn't get that submission, maybe Caceres gets a submission later on in the fight when Pineda gasses out. So fight ends by submission is a very interesting way to look at this. Neither one of these guys has great takedown defense. Both of these guys spend a decent amount of their UFC cage time in control time positions. So I could see it turning into a grappling battle. And if it does, boy, is it going to be an exciting fight. This is a great co-main event, man.
Yeah.
Caceres, I think, has won like 7 of his last 8 fights, or maybe 6 out of 7. He's definitely on a very good streak. The only guy to beat him, Sadiq Youssef. Other than that, he's going out there and knocking out Erosa, submitting Sung Woo Choi, beating the renowned home wrecker Kevin Kroom, a win by sub over Austin Springer. So yeah, I mean, Caceres, even though he's pushing 35 years old at this point in his career, he's going to be the younger guy. He's going to be the guy that's been hot lately. He's going to be the guy that we know isn't like a persistent steroid user near the end of his career. So very interesting fight. I think I'm going to be taking a long look at fight to end by submission here and try to find some violence that way here.
Yeah, I don't like how they set the over under at 1.5. Like, come on. Because if this goes under 1.5, it probably means that Pineda won. If it goes over 1.5, it probably means Caceres is going to win this fight, I think. I think I would lean Caceres just because I trust his cardio more down the stretch, whereas Pineda, it's kind of like a question mark. Sometimes it looks okay, and sometimes it looks like bad, like very, very bad. So we'll have to see. But I think violence is probably the best way to play this fight. I'm curious to see where they do get out that fight ends by sub, or even the fight doesn't go, or like the under 2.5 rounds, the alternative line there. But give me Caceres, but I don't want to completely count out somebody as dangerous. You can never count out somebody as dangerous, Pineda.
Yeah, that's for sure, dude. He's such a vicious finisher, and he throws with such power and purpose. It's going to be a great fight, man. Pineda may be near the end of his career. He may not, he may have been a cheater in the past, but the dude's going to put on always entertaining fights, and on a card like this, you desperately need it.
Absolutely. Daniel with a question, or Patrick with the question saying, are we relying on Daniel's gas tank? No.
Yeah, I mean, you really can't. When a guy finishes 100% of his 28 wins and he's 0-5 in his professional career in decisions, yeah, you're not counting on that. The statistics, bad gas tank is in those statistics.
Yes. All right, Weezy, we have one fight left. It is the main event. Before we get into it, guys, if you guys have not already, be sure to smash the like button. Let's get those likes up. Also, subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. Me and Weezy go live every Sunday, 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time, to break down the card nice and early for you guys. And me, Weezy, and Gordo and Monk will be back Wednesday for the DFS show, which is always fun as well. So be sure to subscribe to not miss out on that. And again, hit the like button. We do appreciate it here. All right, main event time. We got Kaikar France going against Amir Albazi. We got Kaikar France, 30 years old, 5'4", with a 69-inch reach. Albazi, 29 years old, 5'5", with a 68-inch reach. We got Albazi 1 year younger. Albazi with a 1-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach disadvantage. Kaikar France, 3-2 in his last 5 fights. We got a Royval submission loss, and for Kaikar France, a knockout win against Bontarin. Cody Garbrandt, a decision win against Askar Askarov, and then a knockout loss against Brandon Moreno. As far as Amir Albazi, submission win in his debut against Malcolm Gordon, a decision win against Zhalgas Zhumagulov, a decision or submission win against Francisco Figueiredo, and then a knockout win against Alessandro Costa. So this is another fight where I took a look at an early line. I think I messaged you, Weezy. I was like, man, Kai Kara-France plus 150. What's going on here? And then now all of a sudden it is Kai Kara-France minus 115. So that kind of sucks, missed the line. But what really stuck out to me initially is I know people don't really like to look into the level of competition, but it's something I really do put a massive emphasis on for my handicapping. I mean, Amir Albazi's fought just piss poor competition. I mean, Malcolm Gordon, Zhalgas, I mean, he's okay, but at the end of the day, Zhalgas is like 2-6 in the UFC. Francisco Figueiredo, terrible. And then Alessandro Costa, I think is solid, but he's 0-1 in the UFC. Whereas Kai Kara-France, I mean, he just fought for a title. So there's a huge discrepancy in this level of competition. It's just not even close whatsoever. I mean, he beat Askar Askarov, which is a huge win. So I think level of competition is something that really sticks out to me here. With that said, though, I think Kai Kara-France does have solid takedown defense. Like, it's 87% on paper, which is phenomenal. I think he has solid submission defense. He's been submitted a couple times in his career, but he was able to fight off some submissions against Rodrigo Bontorin, who's a high-level black belt, was able to fight off a bunch of submissions against Askar Askarov, was doing all the right things there. So, yeah, he knows what he's doing in terms of the grappling. Can stuff takedowns. He can survive on the mat. He has solid cardio. He has very, very good striking as well. Lots of reasons to like Kai Kara-France here. I think Albazi's really good. It's just he hasn't really been tested yet. I mean, beating Malcolm Gordon, Zhalgas, Figueiredo, and Costa, it just tells me nothing. So I think we're going to learn a lot about Albazi in this matchup. And not saying he can't win this fight. I think he absolutely can, because Albazi's dangerous on the feet and he's dangerous on the mat. And Kai Kara-France has been finished like 6 times, which I don't like. So I don't like the durability of Kai Kara-France, whereas with Albazi, he's never been finished. So the durability has been good thus far in his career. And Kai Kara-France, I do kind of question the durability quite a bit. So yeah, I think a pick'em is about right, I'd say. I mean, I think I could even favor Kai Kara-France just because he's been fighting the much better competition by a mile. And I would have really liked that plus 150 on Kai Kara-France, wherever it was. But obviously that line's not there anymore. Money's been pouring on Kai Kara-France. So Weezy, really good main event. I like this main event quite a bit. 2 high-level guys. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, very, very high-level fight. Really looking forward to this one. When I went back and I watched the tape on Albazi, I was surprised how impressed I was by his boxing. It's very good. We think of Albazi as a wrestler, as a submission grappler, but yeah, his hands are very good. Which is why I think that he opened as the favorite here. Is that people thought that Albazi probably will be able to get some takedowns and win some time on the ground here. I mean, you look at the control time numbers here. 39.69% control time for, only 2.24% control time against. And he's fighting grapplers in Gordon and Figueiredo and Costa and even Zhumagulov. But here's the other key stat, you guys. 4 UFC fights for Amir Albazi. You add up the records of the guys that he's fought. It's 5 wins and 12 losses. So, yeah, Albazi's taken a big step up in competition going up against a guy like Kai Kara-France, who's got 10 UFC fights. He's 7-3 in the promotion, and he's only losing to guys like Brandon Royval, Brandon Moreno, who's the current champion. This guy's, he's fighting really good guys and performing very well against them. Kai, not much on the offensive grappling front. Only 4 takedowns in 10 fights, and he stops 36 out of the 41 takedowns that have come his way. Spends about 23% of his fights in control time positions, and he's winning about 45% of those control time positions. So I kind of feel like, it's going to be very important for Albazi to be able to mix in the wrestling here. But it's a 5-round fight, Brady. So how much is Albazi really going to be able to wrestle here? We've never seen this dude go 5 rounds. Never. So there's a lot of unanswered questions about Albazi, but I think that his striking is very good, very underrated. I don't think he's going to be out of his depth on the feet that much here. It just depends how much he's able to wrestle. Because in the Zhalgas Zhumagulov fight for Albazi, that was a pretty close fight. We saw Zhalgas stuffing the takedowns of Albazi. It wasn't until the 3rd round that we saw Amir really have some success on the ground. So If Kai can keep this standing, I love the fact that he's more experienced. I love the fact that he's been a lot busier than Amir Albazi has. Albazi's got a 13-year career, Brady. Kai Kara-France has a 12-year career. So Albazi's been doing this for 1 year longer, but it's Kai Kara-France who has 18 more professional fights. So he's just been way busier. And he's fought the much better brand of competition. We know that this dude has got legit power on the feet. And we also know that he's been in there with really plus grapplers and showed that he's not out of his depth on the ground. So I am leaning Kai Kara-France here. I think there's less unanswered questions on him. But if this line keeps going, getting Albazi at plus money could be very interesting. Getting Albazi near plus 150, even more interesting, because I think these guys are very well matched. It's just, how is Amir going to do in a 5-round fight? That's something that we need to find out. And how will his striking hold up for long stretches against a striker the quality of Kai Kara-France, who we have not seen him in there. I don't care what anybody says, Brady. Malcolm Gordon is not necessarily as good as Kai Kara-France.
Hot take.
Okay? Hot take. I know, but that's why the Pub Sports Audio audience joins us here, because we're willing to put our balls on the table sometimes and go out there and say, look, you just went out there and said, I like Natalia Silva last week.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. Nobody made you do that. Nobody put a gun to your head, but you said, I got a hot take. And that's why people watch us. That's why people dig in, strap it down every Sunday night, 6:15 Central on Pub Sports Radio to get the hottest takes in the game, Brady.
Yep. I remember when we called, what did we call? We called, the Rosenstruck Almeida fight to finish inside the distance, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And we both liked it. And what happened, Brady?
It happened.
It happened. You're goddamn right it did.
Yep. Exactly. So you can only get hot takes like that here on Pub Sports Radio.
That's right. That's right. That's why you tune into the best, ladies and gentlemen. That's what you do.
Yes, sir. Kai Kara-France plus 150 on the opener. That should have been a bet there, but now it is minus 115, and we're at that point. I'm not nearly as intrigued because I still think Albazi is a really good fighter, and I think this guy has a lot of upside. So I don't know if I want to bet a money line here, and then like the total 3.5 over 3.5 minus 175, the under 3.5 plus 145. Maybe like a fight doesn't go if it's plus money, just because I think both guys have paths to finish. Kai Kara-France, so much power on the feet, and then Albazi could finish on the feet or on the mat. So maybe like a fight doesn't go potentially, but yeah, I gotta go Kai Kara-France here, but missed the line and missed it by a mile. And I don't really see any reason to bet it at this point.
Yeah, I'm pissed we didn't pull the trigger on that, because we were talking about that like 2 weeks ago, and we're like, man, plus 140. We should just bet it sight unseen. And then like the next day we woke up and it was like plus 115. We're like, all right. Now we got time to do the research. We don't need to run to the window now.
Remember when they had Bilal Muhammad open up like plus 170 against Burns? And then it just kept going down
I'm
and
so
down.
Mad at myself, dude. I mean, now we could have got him at plus 150, and he looked so good in that fight, man. I mean, he was just in control the entire time. Rest in peace to all the people who thought he'd get it done inside the distance or had the fight doesn't go tickets. That didn't work out, but Bilal cruised.
Yep, for sure. All right, Weezy, we did it. Any final thoughts on the card overall, and then let the people know the plans for this week for some content. Feels good to be back, and we have a long stretch of fights this summer. I think the next off week's like August, like late August, like August 26th, something like that.
Yeah, I think the first week off will be right around Labor Day. So check in on your content creators over these next 13 weeks, ladies and gentlemen. We work very hard for you, and the UFC cares not if your Uncle Weezy and your Uncle Brady have lovely summers with our significant others and are able to take them on vacations and go outside and see the sun and kiss our loved ones every once in a while. We're not going to be able to do that. We're going to be busting our ass for the next 13 weeks. So my advice for this particular card is, it's the first of 13 weeks. Let's keep our powder dry. There's a lot of close fights here. There's a lot of narrative things going on that really can't lead you to be too confident about either side. So let's wade into the water, maybe ankle deep, maybe knee deep. And we can get into that deep end as the summer gets hotter, as the takes get hotter, right, Brady? But let's start slow. Let's not get rinsed on this card and just ease slowly into this absolute nutcracker of a 13-week stretch back-to-back that we're going to be on here, Brady.
Yep, got to ease into it a little bit. But yeah, I think got to be a light card for me, but I always say that, and then I end up with like 10 bets by the end of the week. So we'll see, but it's probably gonna be a light card. We'll see though. Yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching tonight. Very fun show. Feels good to be back. 13 fight card here. And then next week we have UFC 289, which is going to be fun. Really good card there. So looking forward to that. And then we have some good cards coming up this summer. UFC 290 in July is a really good card. And then we have UFC 291 late July as well, which is a very good card. So yeah, lots of good fights coming. We got Tajik Bey. What is up, Tajik? Coming in here late with the $4.99. Appreciate you, Tajik, on the way out. What a great way to end the stream and the night. Thank you all so much for watching. Best of luck for UFC Vegas 74, and we'll talk to you guys soon. See you later.